At Christmas, while flipping through old family photo albums, my fiancé suddenly froze. He leaned closer, his face pale, and whispered, "Don't you see it?" I didn't understand until I looked closer. Stay with me while I tell you this story. If it makes you feel something, don't forget to show some love. Tap subscribe, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. My name is Emily, I'm 27, and that night was supposed to be one of the happiest Christmases of my life. My fiancé, Ryan, was with me at my mom's house. Her name is Linda, and she's 55, warm, chatty, and the kind of mom who wants everything to feel perfect during the holidays. She'd invited aunts, uncles, cousins, so the living room was full of laughter, wrapping paper, the smell of roasted ham, and glasses clinking. After dinner, my mom brought out something she always loved showing off, her old photo album. Everyone leaned in, laughing at 80s hairstyles, cringing at fashion choices, and pointing out who looked like who. It was light, happy, nostalgic. But then Ryan stopped laughing. He wasn't even smiling anymore. He was staring so hard at one page that his hand trembled. His face went pale, and he leaned in, whispering to me, "Emily, don't you see it?" I frowned, leaned closer. It was just an old family picture. My dad, Mark, who passed away years ago, standing beside my mom. They looked young, full of life. But Ryan wasn't pointing at them. His finger tapped the corner of the picture where another man stood, just slightly in the background. I blinked. He was tall, with kind eyes and a half-smile. I'd never paid attention to him before, maybe just assumed he was one of my dad's friends. Ryan whispered again, voice tight now. "Emily, that man looks exactly like my dad." I laughed nervously, shaking my head. No, you're imagining things. My mom and dad had a lot of friends. People came and went back then. But Ryan didn't laugh. He stared at me with that serious look I'd only seen a few times before. "I'm not imagining it. That's him. I know my dad's face." The room was still buzzing with laughter around us, cousins pointing out embarrassing photos of each other, my mom giggling over hairstyles she used to think were trendy. No one else noticed the quiet storm building between Ryan and me. I tried brushing it off, flipping the page, but Ryan's hand pressed it down. "Emily, we need to talk. Now." His voice was so sharp that I felt my stomach drop. My heart began racing. Something about the way he looked at me, like his world had just tilted sideways, made my skin prickle. I nodded slowly, forcing a smile to the room, pretending nothing was wrong. But inside, I was shaking. Ryan pulled me aside, into the hallway away from the laughter. His eyes burned into mine. "Emily, tell me why your mom is in so many pictures with my dad." I couldn't get Ryan's words out of my head. Even as I sat back at the table, forcing a smile while my cousins told silly stories and my mom passed around more cookies, my mind kept circling back to that photo. The man in the corner. The way Ryan's face had drained of all color when he saw it. His voice, firm and trembling at the same time. "That's my dad." The thought made my chest tighten. My dad, Mark, had passed away when I was just a teenager. I had always believed my mom when she told me he was the love of her life. But if what Ryan said was true, then everything I knew about my family, about myself, was cracked open. Ryan leaned closer to me, his words a low whisper no one else could hear. "Emily, I swear to you, that man in the pictures? That's Greg. My dad. I'd recognize him anywhere." I shook my head quickly, almost too quickly. "No, Ryan, that doesn't make sense. Maybe he just looks like him. People can resemble each other. It's nothing." Ryan's jaw clenched, his eyes sharp. "It's not just resemblance. It's him. Why is he in your family's photo album? Why is he always next to your mom?" My stomach dropped. A cold wave rushed through me, and for a second I thought I might actually be sick. Because if Ryan was right, if his father had been more than just a family friend, then that would mean the unthinkable. I tried to push the thought away, but it forced itself back into my mind. What if Ryan is my half-brother? I couldn't even breathe properly. Shock, confusion, and denial all crashed inside me at once. "No," I whispered fiercely, my hands gripping my lap under the table. "That's impossible. My dad was my dad. My mom would never." Ryan interrupted, his voice low but heavy. "Emily, open your eyes. Why else would he be there? Why else would she never talk about her past friends?" He was right about one thing. There had been moments growing up when my mom dodged questions about certain people. Times when I'd asked how she met my dad's circle of friends, and she'd laugh it off, change the subject, or say, "Oh, it was a long time ago, you wouldn't care." I thought nothing of it then. But now it felt like puzzle pieces clicking into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. My voice cracked as I whispered back to him, "Ryan, stop. Don't say it." His eyes softened for a second, but only with pity. "Emily, I'm telling you because I need you to understand. I know my father's face." Around us, laughter continued. My uncle was retelling some embarrassing story from his college days, and my mom was chuckling along, completely unaware of the storm happening right under her. I forced a smile when someone glanced my way, but inside, I was breaking apart. Ryan and I exchanged another tense glance. Neither of us wanted to say what we were both thinking out loud, but it hung there between us like smoke filling the room. That night, I made a decision. Once the guests left, once the house grew quiet, I was going to ask my mom the truth. No more dodging. No more secrets. I needed to know. When the last car pulled out of the driveway and the sound of laughter faded into the cold December night, the house fell silent. Wrapping paper still littered the floor, the smell of pine clung to the air, and my mom hummed softly as she carried dishes into the kitchen. Ryan sat stiffly on the couch, his arms folded, eyes dark and distant. My chest tightened. I couldn't carry the weight of his silence or my own questions any longer. I followed my mom into the kitchen. "Mom," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. She turned, smiling tiredly, expecting small talk. But I didn't let her settle into comfort. "Why is Ryan's dad in all those pictures with you? Why does he keep showing up, close to you like that?" Her smile faltered. For a second, she blinked at me like she didn't understand. Then she laughed lightly, brushing it off. "Oh, honey, families took pictures with lots of people back then. Your father had plenty of friends. Don't overthink it." But I wasn't letting it go. My hands shook as I pointed at the empty photo album still sitting on the counter. "Don't lie to me, Mom. You looked nervous when Ryan asked. Why? Why are you hiding something?" Her face stiffened. "Emily, not now. It's Christmas. We've had a long day." I cut her off, my voice rising. "No, Mom. I'm done pretending. I need the truth. Was Greg, Ryan's dad, more than just a friend? Tell me right now." The silence after my words was unbearable. My mom set the dish down carefully, her hands trembling just enough for me to notice. She avoided my eyes. Her chest rose and fell with shaky breaths, and I felt my stomach not even before she spoke. Finally, she sank into a chair, her voice breaking. "Yes, I knew Greg. More than I should have. It was a mistake, Emily. I was young, I was lonely, and your father was working long hours. It happened once, maybe twice. But it never meant anything." I stared at her, unable to move. My throat closed up, my heartbeat pounding so loud I could barely hear her. "So, what are you saying? That Ryan and I could be..." My voice cracked, and I couldn't finish the thought. Tears filled her eyes as she reached for me, desperate. "No, no, baby. Mark is your father. He always was, he always will be. I swear it. You were his, and he loved you with everything in him." Her words offered no comfort, because what she didn't give me was proof. There was no certainty. Just her shaking voice, her tears, and her confession that she had betrayed my father's memory, and maybe my entire identity. I staggered back, clutching the counter for support. My whole world felt like it was cracking apart. Behind me, I heard a sound movement. Ryan had walked in. His face was pale, his eyes burning with betrayal. He had heard everything, and the look he gave me wasn't just hurt, it was fear. Ryan's face twisted as the words from my mother's mouth sank into the room like poison. He looked at her, then at me, then back at her again, his jaw clenching. I could see the panic in his eyes, the disgust mixing with fear. He shook his head slowly, backing away from both of us. "Ryan, wait." I rushed toward him, reaching for his arm, but he pulled back like my touch burned him. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Do you even understand what this means, Emily? If there's even the smallest chance that what she said is true, we could be related. Do you hear me? Related." The words slammed into me like a stone. My throat tightened, and tears spilled before I could stop them. No, it's not like that. She said my dad is my dad. She swore it. Please, Ryan, you can't just throw us away over this." But Ryan's eyes were filled with something colder than I had ever seen in him before. "I can't take that risk. I can't unhear what I just heard. Every time I look at you, I'll wonder. Every time I think about our future, about kids, about marriage, what if it's true? What if we're living a lie?" I sobbed harder, clutching his hands, but he yanked them free. "Please, Ryan. We love each other. We can fix this. We'll get answers, we'll take a test, anything you want. Don't give up on me now." His chest rose and fell with harsh breaths. For a moment, I thought I saw him falter, the old softness flicker in his eyes. But then he shook his head again, more firmly this time. "I can't, Emily. I can't marry you with this hanging over us. I'm sorry." The words shattered me. It felt like my ribs cracked under the weight of them. My knees nearly buckled, and I covered my face with my hands, crying so hard it hurt to breathe. My mom stepped forward then, her face red and wet with tears. "Emily, honey, I never meant for this to happen. I made a mistake, but don't blame Ryan. He's right to feel scared." I spun on her, rage slicing through my grief. My voice came out like a scream that ripped from somewhere deep in my chest. "This is your fault. You ruined everything. You ruined my life." She flinched, covering her mouth, but I didn't stop. I wanted her to feel the same pain I was drowning in. When I turned back, Ryan was already at the door. He slipped the engagement ring from his finger, placed it gently on the table by the hallway, and looked at me one last time. His eyes were full of sorrow, but his feet didn't stop moving. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me broken, sobbing, and staring at the ring that symbolized the future I had just lost. The night Ryan walked out left me hollow. I sat for hours staring at the engagement ring glinting on the table, as if it mocked me. My heart ached with questions I couldn't silence. The fear that he might be right, that we could share blood, gnawed at me until I couldn't stand it anymore. The very next morning, with shaking hands, I ordered a DNA test. It was the only way to know. The days that followed dragged like chains. I sent messages to Ryan, long paragraphs pouring out my heart, but they remained unread. When I called, his phone went straight to voicemail. The silence from him was worse than anger. It was like he'd already erased me. My mom tried to reach me too. She would knock on my bedroom door with tea, whispering apologies through the wood. Emily, I was young. I was lonely. Your father worked so much, and I was stupid. But I never stopped loving him. You're his daughter, I swear it. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Her words only reopened the wound every time she spoke. How could she tell me to believe her when her lies had already burned my life down? I lay awake at night, replaying her confession, replaying Ryan's horrified face, my chest tightening until I thought I'd suffocate. Weeks stretched on like this, every day a mix of dread and hope. I carried the secret of that test inside me like a ticking clock. At work, I faked smiles. With friends, I avoided questions about Ryan. Inside, I was unraveling. Finally, one gray morning, an envelope arrived in the mail with my name printed across it. My hands shook as I tore it open, my breath catching as my eyes scanned the words. Negative. There was no blood relation between Ryan and me. I dropped into a chair, the paper slipping from my fingers. Relief crashed through me so hard I burst into tears. But they weren't tears of joy. They were bitter, salty tears of rage. My mother's choices had nearly destroyed me. If she hadn't lied, if she hadn't kept her secrets, none of this would have happened. Ryan and I would still be together, planning our wedding, not drowning in suspicion. I clutched the results to my chest, my sobs turning into shaky laughter. I wasn't related to Ryan. He was mine. Nothing was standing between us now, except the wreckage of betrayal left behind. Wiping my tears, I stood and looked at the ring still lying where Ryan had left it weeks ago. My chest tightened, but this time not with despair, with determination. Ryan had walked away in fear, but now I had the truth in my hand. I wasn't going to let my mother's sins steal my future any longer. I would fight for him, no matter how broken things seemed. I wasn't ready to let him go. I rehearsed 100 times what I would say before finally showing up at Ryan's place. My heart hammered in my chest as I knocked, clutching the DNA results in my trembling hand. When he opened the door, his face was tight, guarded. He didn't invite me in, but he didn't slam the door either. That tiny mercy gave me hope. Ryan, I whispered, holding the papers out to him. Please just look. He took them, scanned the words, and I saw the moment he understood. His shoulders sagged, his lips parting as relief flickered in his eyes. For one breathless second, I thought he would pull me into his arms and everything would fall back into place. But then his expression hardened again. He handed the papers back, his voice flat. I'm glad, really, but it doesn't change what your mom did. It doesn't change what I know now, or that I can't unsee it every time I look at you. The words sliced through me. I tried to reach for him, tried to remind him of our love, but he stepped back, his face closing like a locked door. Emily, I just can't. And then he shut me out. I walked home numb, the papers crumpled in my hands. Relief had turned to ashes in seconds. I wasn't his sister, but I wasn't his fiancé either. Days later, still drowning in heartbreak, I got the call that destroyed whatever was left of me. A mutual friend slipped it out casually, not knowing it would rip me apart. Ryan was seeing someone. Not just anyone. Claire. My best friend. The girl who had been my shoulder through every teenage heartbreak. The one who had stood beside me when Ryan first proposed, crying happy tears with me. I couldn't believe it at first. I laughed, shaking my head, telling myself it was some cruel mistake. But when I scrolled through Claire's social media and saw the carefully cropped photos, the hints of his jacket in the background, the unmistakable reflection of his face in a window, the truth hit me so hard I dropped my phone. It felt like a knife twisting deeper than anything my mom or Ryan had done before. My fiancé had left me in pieces, and now he was in the arms of the one person I thought I could always trust. Betrayal stacked on betrayal until it hollowed me out. I locked myself in my room that night, crying until my body ached. Grief turned into rage. Rage turned into something darker, sharper. If Ryan thought he could erase me, if Claire thought she could take my place, then neither of them knew who I truly was. Through my tears, I stared at the engagement ring still lying on the table, my reflection warped in its surface. My heart was shattered, but my resolve hardened. They had broken me, but I would not stay broken. I would get my revenge. On both of them. I wiped my face clean, covered the swelling around my eyes with makeup, and forced myself to smile when I called Claire. My voice shook only a little as I said, I want us to be okay. I don't want to lose you too. She hesitated, then sighed with relief. I'm so glad you said that. I didn't want it to happen this way, but Ryan and it just felt right. I hope one day you'll understand. Her words stabbed me, but I didn't let it show. I even laughed softly, pretending. Maybe it's for the best. I want you happy. I played the role of the forgiving friend so well that she believed me. We even met for coffee, and I listened to her gush about Ryan like I hadn't once worn the ring she now secretly admired. Every smile I gave her was a mask, every nod a lie. Inside, my anger burned hotter, fueling me. If Claire thought she had stolen my future, and if Ryan thought he had left me behind, they were about to learn how wrong they were. While I kept Claire close, I turned my focus to Ryan. If I couldn't have his love, I would take his peace. I began quietly digging into his life, retracing the pieces of the man I thought I knew. Ryan worked in his family's business, handling accounts and payroll. He always boasted about being indispensable, about how his father trusted him more than anyone else. But I remembered things he'd let slip, late nights with money not adding up, unexplained purchases, odd stress he brushed off with a smile. I started watching, digging. A few discreet conversations with people who worked under him, a glance at records I shouldn't have had access to, and then it unraveled like a badly stitched sweater. Ryan wasn't just stressed. He was stealing. Small amounts, here and there, skimmed off accounts that didn't scream for attention. But over time, it added up to something big. I felt a twisted satisfaction coil in my chest as I pieced it all together. The man who once told me he couldn't unsee the shadow of my mother's sins was now drowning in his own. But I didn't act recklessly. I was careful. I gathered screenshots, copies, dates, and names. I tracked everything until the evidence was a neat little package no one could deny. All the while, I smiled when I saw Claire, pretending to support her new love. At night, when the house was quiet, I sat in front of my laptop, staring at the growing file. Each piece of proof felt like another stone in the wall I was building around Ryan's future. He thought he had walked away from me untouched. But I had him now, his reputation, his career, everything he had built. And I knew exactly how I was going to destroy him. Emily waited until every piece of evidence was airtight before moving. Weeks of careful digging had armed her with bank statements, altered invoices, and even a string of careless texts Ryan had sent bragging to Claire about easy money. She knew exactly when to strike. One Monday morning, while Ryan was busy charming clients at his father's firm, Emily walked into the office like she belonged there. Calm, collected, she asked to see Mr. Graham, the man who trusted Ryan as his right hand. Sliding a neatly organized folder across his polished desk, Emily didn't need to say much. Numbers, transfers, and signatures did the talking. She just leaned back and whispered, "You deserve to know what your son has been doing behind your back." The reaction was immediate and volcanic. Within hours, Ryan was summoned, confronted, and cornered by the very man he had been stealing from. His father's face turned crimson as he shouted words Ryan would never forget. "You're no son of mine if you can betray me like this." The entire office heard. By the afternoon, Ryan was fired, his name smeared across hushed conversations that spread quickly in their small town. No job, no respect, no future. Emily had pulled the rug right out from under him. But that was only half her plan. The next target was Claire. For weeks, Emily had smiled sweetly in her presence, pretending to forgive, even going as far as buying her coffee, listening to her stories, nodding at her lies. Claire never suspected that Emily had been recording screenshots of her messages, saving photos, and preparing to burn the friendship circle they shared. One Friday night, when their tight-knit group gathered at a local bar, Emily stood up mid-conversation, phone in hand, and said calmly, "Since we're all friends, you should probably know the truth." With a flick of her thumb, she airdropped screenshots to every phone in the circle, the flirty texts, the mocking jokes Claire had made about stealing, Ryan, and even a selfie of the two of them lying in Emily's bed. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. One by one, their friends turned on Claire, disgust plain on their faces. "You did this to Emily?" Someone spat. Another shook their head, pushing Claire's hand away when she tried to explain. By the end of the night, Claire sat alone at the corner table, mascara streaking down her cheeks, while whispers followed her out the door. Emily walked out without a tear. Behind her, Ryan and Claire were unraveling. He blamed her for distracting him, for making him reckless. She blamed him for ruining her reputation. The two of them fought bitterly, dragging each other down into the ashes Emily had set aflame. By the time the dust settled, they were both pariahs. Isolated, hated, stripped of the power they once held over her. And Emily? She finally smiled. The execution had been flawless. Ryan showed up at Emily's apartment on a cold, gray evening, his face hollow and his clothes wrinkled as if he hadn't slept in days. The swagger he once carried was gone, replaced by bitterness and desperation. He slammed his fist against her door until she opened it. "Are you happy now?" he hissed, stepping inside without invitation. "You destroyed me, Emily. You cost me my job, my reputation, everything I worked for, all because you couldn't let go." Emily stood calmly, her arms folded across her chest. The fire that used to burn in her eyes when he betrayed her had cooled into something sharper, colder. "No, Ryan," she said evenly. "I didn't destroy you. You did that all by yourself. I just made sure everyone saw the truth you were already living." His jaw tightened, his voice breaking with rage. "You ruined my life." She didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned closer, her tone like ice cutting through the air. "You ruined mine first. I just finished the job." The words hung heavy between them, slicing deeper than any scream could. Ryan's shoulders sagged as the reality pressed in. He had lost, and there was no one to blame but himself. From the doorway, Linda appeared, hesitant and shaken. She had come hoping to mediate, to mend the fractures that had grown too wide. But as she watched Emily face the man who had betrayed her, guilt consumed her. She saw how her own blindness, her willingness to let her daughter date Ryan despite the red flags, her silence when suspicions grew, had fueled this tragedy. "Emily," Linda's voice trembled, her hands wringing nervously. I never meant for it to come to this. Maybe if I had spoken up earlier." Emily cut her off, her eyes glistening but steady. "No, Mom. You stood by and watched me fall apart. You knew something was wrong, and you chose silence. That makes you part of it too." Linda's lips quivered, tears streaming down her cheeks. She reached out, but Emily stepped back, her expression firm. "I can't forgive you," Emily whispered. "Not yet. Maybe not ever. I'm done letting the people closest to me hurt me just because they're family or because I loved them once." The room fell into silence, Ryan staring at the floor in defeat, Linda broken in shame. Emily picked up her bag and slung it over her shoulder. She looked at them one last time, not with anger, but with the clarity of someone who had finally freed herself. "I'm walking away from both of you," she said quietly, "and I won't look back." Then she left, the sound of the door closing behind her like the final chapter of a book she never wanted to write. For the first time in months, Emily felt the air on her face as something pure and untainted. She wasn't healed yet, but she was free, and that was enough to begin rebuilding. Emily walks away, determined to rebuild without them. Winter had turned into spring by the time Emily finally felt she could breathe again. The sting of betrayal still lingered, like a scar that refused to fade, but it no longer controlled her every waking thought. Months had passed since she had last seen Ryan, Claire, or even her own mother, and the silence was both painful and liberating. Her apartment had become her sanctuary. She had redecorated, shifting the furniture, painting the walls, throwing out everything that reminded her of the past. It was a symbolic cleansing, a declaration that her old life was gone, and with it the people who had poisoned it. There were moments when she missed what she thought she had, the illusion of love with Ryan, the comfort of friendship with Claire, the guidance of her mother. But when she dug deeper, she realized she didn't miss them at all. She missed the version of herself that trusted too easily, loved too recklessly, and gave without question. That Emily was gone forever. Ryan had vanished after his fall from grace. Word around town was that he had packed up in the middle of the night and left with nothing but a suitcase and his shame. Employers wanted nothing to do with him. His friends had cut ties after learning of his lies. His name carried only scorn now. Emily sometimes wondered where he ended up, but she never let herself care. He was nothing more than a closed chapter. Claire's downfall had been quieter, but no less devastating. Once the darling of their social circle, she was now avoided at every gathering, her messages left unanswered, her presence unwelcome. Emily hadn't spoken to her since that night, and she intended to keep it that way. The betrayal was too deep, the cut too raw to ever heal. And then there was Linda, her mother. That wound was the deepest of them all. Even now, Emily struggled to understand how a mother could side with betrayal over her own daughter. The pain of cutting ties was heavy, but every day without the manipulation and guilt brought her closer to peace. Emily had learned the hard way that family wasn't always blood. Sometimes family was simply the people who chose to stand by you, no matter what. On quiet evenings, she sat by her window with a cup of tea, reflecting on all that had happened. She no longer felt like a victim. She was a survivor, stronger, sharper, and unwilling to ever be blindsided again. The betrayal had broken her, yes, but it had also forced her to rebuild from the ashes. Emily closed her journal one night after writing her final thought, never again. She smiled faintly, wiped a tear, and stood tall. The past was gone. A new chapter awaited. She was broken but unbent, and she was ready. Do you think Emily made the right choice by cutting off her mom, her ex, and her former best friend? Or should she have given them another chance? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy emotional stories like this, Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one.